assigned to me, and that's very special. It's something I'm very proud of, and as you said, it's maybe actually it doesn't happen as much to players. So once again, something I'm proud of.
And that's a challenger tournament. You've played a challenger tournament this year in singles, and you won the doubles at that tournament in France. Are you still? I mean, it's a big call, isn't it? When you're so experienced as you've been so high, to go back and play challengers. Is that something that you're willing to do? You want to do?
Oh, I don't mind to play challengers. I played that one because I wanted to have a few matches on clay. Well, unfortunately, I lost first round in singles, but in the end, the doubles helped me, and also again for the body to get used to the clay. No, I don't mind to play challengers at all. I think it's a different if you go back one more step. Maybe if you're injured for a year and you have to really come back, that's going to be tough. But the challengers are well organized. Most of them, of course, you always have one or two that maybe you don't like, but that's in every job the case. I didn't mind, and this was a great event organized by Moratoglu, and it was actually also nice to see the whole academy and how they do it, and it was good.
I know you love the clay. I think you have it down as your favourite surface. Special time of year, the European clay court swing. Do you have a favourite tournament?
There's so many that are nice. But if I maybe have to take one, it's maybe Rome. Just the way it looks. The fans, the Italian fans are. I mean it in the best way, but they are crazy, but in a good way, and it's very nice. I always. Actually, when I started playing tennis, the futures and challengers, I always went to Italy, so they also quite know me pretty good. They followed me through my career, and they often cheer for me, so that's nice. But also like the center court, but also the Pietrangeli court, it's just beautiful. And then I don't even have to talk about the food and the weather. It's always great.
You signed up for that one?
I did. I made sure.
And just finally, Robin, I have to ask you about the French. I think you've not gone past the round of 64 or 32.
Yeah,
it's for someone who's enjoyed so much success on clay. I'm sure you won't mind me saying that. I'm sure you'd love to go, one more than you've done throughout your career.
Yeah, no, for sure. Of course, it's all about draws sometimes. At the beginning of my career, I had some tough draws, but I missed some chances, good chances where I played well, like against Almagro. The year he made quarterfinals, I was 2-1 up, 4-3, 40-30, easy volley. If I make that volley, you never know. Maybe you win 6-3 or 6-4, and maybe you can go on. Also a few times that I had the chance maybe that I played good, but I only played good in the first round, and then played a little bit disappointing second round. It's the way it goes. I just keep doing my best, and hopefully I can make it further than the second rounds before I stop playing tennis.
We'll be watching you all the way. Robin, thank you.
Thank you.
On iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn and ATPTour.com. This is the ATP Tennis Radio Podcast.
Well, we're here with Tony Nadal, uncle and, of course, former coach of the great Rafael Nadal, and outside the academy stand, Tony. So let's talk about that first. You're director of the Rafael Nadal Academy. How's the academy going?
Oh, the academy is going really good. We are very, very happy. We opened 3 years ago, and everything goes good. We start with, I don't remember very well, but with 70 boys and girls, and now we have more than 130. In these years, I think our youngs have improved a lot. We have, at the moment, I think 10 people who play futures, and girls and women, they have points. They arrive without points, and now we have. Then we have two good players, Jaime Munar and Casper Ruud. Casper Ruud arrived when he arrived last year, when he was, I don't remember well, 150. Now he's 68, I think, in the world. Jaime Munar arrived 2 years ago, and he was the player 290. Now he is the 60 in the world. Then we are really happy. But we don't stop with this, because we want to try that many young players of our academy goes good and improve a lot.
So the next question, how are you doing it? What's the secret? I see your motto is lessons in life, performance in tennis. I've spoke with them both in Madrid. They both seem hugely humble, impressive guys. They're willing to work hard. Is that the secret, growing the human being as well as the tennis player?
For not only for tennis, for every sport, for everything in the life, there are only one secret: is work. Work hard and think. When you only hit balls without thinking, it's difficult to improve. Is thinking and work hard, and this is what we try to give these experiences to our youngs. And then is to have confidence. Is not to think about thinking myself that we are very good. You know, is think that we are not enough good, but we will be good. This is in my opinion, the most important thing. Know my real how I am, but to have the confidence to be so much better.
And is that the same whether people come and live with you full time and also for the summer camps? Because I see you're doing summer camps as well.
Always is the same. When the people come in the summer camps, what we try is that give a good experience of these youngs. From time they come for 1 week, 2 weeks, and we try that in these 1 or 2 weeks to give some tips, some good, some lessons that they can to work in the rest of the year. And what we try always is that they have good experiences in our academy.
And does that include Rafa? I mean, how involved is Rafa in the academy?
Rafael is totally involved in the academy.
ممتاز اختيار ذكي كثر الإيقاع بضربة الدروب شوت بعد ذلك فور هاند عرضي.
He come every day there. He's sometimes with the kids. He play in the academy. He practice there. Normally he practice with some kids of the academy. He's involved and he knows what happened with the youngs that they are there.
Getting himself ready for the clay court swing, yes. No doubt. Talk to me about Monte Carlo and Rafa. I mean, it's just a magical place for him, isn't it? What is it about this tournament that just turns it on in him so much?
I don't know exactly what is in his mind, but I remember when I arrived here for the first time in 2003. For me, it was a dream to play this tournament. One of my dreams was that Rafael can win this tournament 1 year. And we are really happy that he can win 11 times. But it was incredible for me because always I watched it. When I was young, I watched this tournament. I watched Ilie Nastase when he won here, Björn Borg, Vilas, many great players, Lendl, Wilander. And then I remember the first time that Rafael won, and I thought, Rafael can write his name in this, in the club. Then, after many years, he has won many times.
He has indeed. Most of the time now, Tony, you watch him on television, I guess.
Yes.
What do you think Carlos Moya has done for Rafa?
Good. I think Carlos Moya give another illusion, another view, and good. Always Rafael has a very good relationship with Carlos, and I think for him was so good that he can play with him now. Not I don't want to forget the other coach, Francis Roch. I think Rafael is very good with both and good, and the results are there.
And this one, of course, isn't the only one he's won 11 times. Roland Garros, Barcelona. Just talk to me quickly about Barcelona as well, and with it being so close to home, how important is that one?
Okay, for me, Monte Carlo was so good. Barcelona was the special tournament. For me too, for Rafael, always was a special tournament because it's in Barcelona, in Conde de Godó, the tournament that we have always seen in the TV, and we are lucky that Rafael won 11 times there. No, both are special tournaments. Monte Carlo and Barcelona, Madrid too.
You must be very proud.
Yes, well, I don't know. I don't like to say proud. I am very happy with what Rafael has done on the tennis, how he's going all these years, and good. I hope that he can play still, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years more, and so I can watch in the TV.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
And just a little word, if some of those interviews you wanted to hear a bit more, then we do have an exclusives channel on the TuneIn Radio website or app, and that's where we store all the interviews from all the Masters. And we're speaking to coaches, we're speaking to tournament organisers, we're speaking to players. They are really fascinating insights. It's the wonderful thing about ATP Tennis Radio. We really do get behind the scenes. So if you enjoyed what you heard just there, then don't forget about our exclusives channel on the TuneIn Radio website or app. We move on to Barcelona. For the first time, ATP Tennis Radio is broadcasting a whole week of 500 commentary from start to finish. The good news is we're not doing predictions because I, for one, need a break. My mind was being blown with predictions, especially, Barry, when you see the lineup for Barcelona. It's absolutely insane.
Just made a prediction.
That I'm not going to make a prediction.
We got a great lineup.
We got a great lineup. I'm not going to make a prediction, but it's everywhere you look. We know that the top 16 get a bye into the second round, but it's a sensational lineup for this 500 event.
It is a truly astonishing draw when you consider that Shapovalov is ranked 20 in the world. He's seeded 9. You've got obviously Nadal looking to win a 12th. Barcelona, and again, it's a great mix of the established players such as Nishikori, who's played well in the past, Team, who will want to get back to winning ways. I think it's an important week for Team, as it is also for Rafa. But then you've got the next gen players, Tsitsipas, who last year that was where he really emerged in the big time. When he had a great run in Barcelona, making the final. Khachanov needs form, Tiafoe, Shapovalov, as I mentioned, Auger-Aliassime, Medvedev. He will be smarting after Saturday. It's a great gauge next week. I think it's actually a very, very important week. And my prediction...
Oh, you're going to make one?
Make a prediction. The only prediction I am going to make is that the players in the last 4 are going to be higher ranked than the last 4 we had in Monte Carlo. It's going to be tougher to win Barcelona.
I don't think that's the bravest of predictions. Can I say that?
No, you just shot me down.
I think a big thing for me, you listen to the voice, by the way, of Barry Cowan, who's part of our commentary team in Barcelona.
Not anymore.
It's not anymore. Plane's going the other way now. Sasha Zverev.
Yep.
Do you have an idea as to what's going on there? Because it's not the Sasha Zverev that we saw last year. It's a different. Why is it a different Zverev that we're seeing?
I'm really concerned with Zverev at the moment, and this starts from the beginning of the year against Raonic in Australia, where I thought it was an emotionally flat performance, and which was very surprising how he ended in the ATP finals, where he was able to take care of Federer and Djokovic in the manner that he did. Was that the pressure that he felt? And he has looked, I look at his performance this week in Monte Carlo, I felt that it looked like he had the world on his shoulders. in that match against Fognini. The second set, which Fognini won 6-1, yes, Fognini played well, but it didn't look like, to me, that Sasha had any oomph. You know, there wasn't a glint in his eye. You know, so often you can tell by body language, and you know, he needs to get back, you know, playing with passion. He had that illness in Indian Wells, and I'm just wondering whether it is a little bit more than that. Actually, he's not 100. He doesn't feel 100% fit, because you know, at times he looked a little lifeless. We know he's a class act, and the old saying, you know, form is temporary, class is permanent. We know Zverev will get back to a very high level, but in terms of his French Open chances, which ultimately he wants to make that next step in slams, doesn't he? The best run he's had, his last 8 of the Roland Garros last year. He needs to get back to winning ways, otherwise he can't be a serious contender for the French.
He took a wild card, so he bumped Team down to the 3rd seed here, and he's in the same little chunk as, I'm just reading the seeds here, Grigor Dimitrov and Gilles Simon and Daniel Medvedev and former winner in Barcelona, Kei Nishikori and Felix Auger-Aliassime. There is a Spaniard you wanted to mention, and it's not the Spaniard people probably think you're about to mention.
Yeah. And actually, it's kind of got the dream potential draw, because we're talking about Ferrer and what he's contributed to our sport. Incredible work ethic. I mean, no, everyone that you would ever hear talk about Ferrer, utmost respect. He's bowing out in a couple of weeks. It'll be a last tournament in Madrid. It's his last Barcelona Open. He's got a wild card. Actually, he is set to play Rafa in the 3rd round. Wouldn't that be nice?
He's got Misha Zverev first up, and then the winner of that has Luca Pouille, who's in as the 15th seed. So it's by no means straightforward to try and get what would be a dream meeting for David Ferrer. Rafael's got the winner of Marius Koppel and Leonardo Mayer. There are some amazing matchups. It's a 500 level tournament. Barry Cowan, part of our team next week. The first time on ATP Tennis Radio on a whole week of 500. Do you want to make a prediction? Do you want to give us a win? I just can't.
I didn't think we made a prediction. That's not part of our...
But it's not in your contract, but if you would like to give me your winner for Barcelona now, we can
NADAL.
have it. Oh, all right, there we go.
Going out on a limb.
Barry Cowan's going out on a limb. He's going with the 11-time Barcelona champion.
I'm a risk taker.
I went with the 11-time Monte Carlo champion, and that didn't work out that well. If you would like to make a prediction at ATP Tennis Radio, I told you about the Facebook page, the ATP Tour Facebook page. Join ATP Tour fans. But the next time we'll do the big predictions, which is you pick someone 1 to 8, 9 to 16, and then someone from the rest of the pack. That is Madrid. So just bide your time, see what happens, see how things shake out over the next week or so, and you can get your predictions in for that. Thank you very much for being with us. Now, Barcelona will be with you half an hour before play starts every day. So if you're listening to this before play starts on day 1, that is 10:30 a.m. local time. Don't forget, ATP Tennis Radio, for the first time in our history, a whole week of 500 action from start to finish. And what a tournament to begin with, headed up by the 11-time champion Rafa Nadal. You can find ATP Tennis Radio in all the usual places. During Barcelona, it's on the Barcelona website, also atptour.com, Tennis TV website or app, smart speakers, TuneIn radio website or app. Monte Carlo, it's all been about Fabio Fognini, his first Masters 1000 title. He's a Masters champion. Who will be raising the trophy in Barcelona next week? You'll have commentary on ATP Tennis Radio, but thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to having it again soon.
If you like this podcast, please search the iTunes store for ATP Tennis Radio to leave a review.
Welcome to the latest ATP Tennis podcast with me, Chris Bowers, and this week it's all things Wimbledon. We'll hear from the coach of a young British player taking on tennis's man of the moment. We have Andy Murray talking about Roger Federer's chances. Daniel Medvedev tells us how his grass court game is shaping up. Francis Tiafoe's coach, Wayne Ferreira, talks about what they've been working on. And in one of the matchups from round 1 at Wimbledon, we'll hear from both Sebastian Korda and Alex de Minaur. But right now, I'm delighted to be joined by Joe Salisbury, one half of the world's 4th best doubles pair on this year's results. Joe, you had a good run at Eastbourne. You lost in the final, but hey, you and Rajiv Ram lost that final to the team that everyone's been losing to this year, Pavic and Mektic. So, are you happy with the week?
Yeah, we went into it kind of, obviously it's more of a preparation week for Wimbledon, kind of looking at it that way. wanted to get some more matches, which we did, and yeah, we played well for most of the week. It was disappointing that we didn't play as well in the final, but yeah, we went there and did what we needed to do to feel good going into Wimbledon.
They are winning everything at the moment, Mektic and Pavic. What makes them so good? Is it just form, or is there something about the way they gel together?
Yeah, I mean, you've got Pavic. He's a very good server. It's tough to break his serve when he's on, which he has been pretty much all the time this year. And then Mektic, very solid returner, and Pavic can also be strong on the returns in some games as well. So I think now they're just on a great run. Obviously, they're feeling good, really confident. And I think teams go into playing them kind of feeling that they have to play really well, and then sometimes maybe kind of overdo it and then don't play as well. And yeah, it's tough to sort of break the run that they're on.
You and Rajiv Ram have been together for a couple of years now. How has the relationship changed? I mean, at the beginning, he was very much the senior partner. Did you get a sense over a period that you grew into being a pair of equals?
Yeah, we definitely feel like that. I think, yeah, at the start, I definitely felt like he was kind of, yeah, like you said, the senior player. Obviously, he'd been on the tour a lot longer. He'd achieved a lot more than I had. But yeah, we don't really look at it that way. Obviously, we've been playing together a long time, and I think, yeah, we respect each other a lot and value each other's games, and we've kind of grown as a team to understand each other a lot better, and that's helped us sort of improve gradually over the years.
And so this week it's been announced that you'll be playing with Andy Murray in the Olympics. So a new partner, also somebody with a great reputation. How is that going to be in terms of the dynamic?
To be honest, I don't really know. I think obviously it's an incredible thing for me to be playing with him at the Olympics. I mean, just for me to be playing my first Olympics is really sort of really special thing. But to be playing with him, such a legend of the game. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a surreal experience, I suppose. But I think, yeah, I mean, I've got to know Andy better over the last few years, and yeah, I mean, such a good guy, easy to get on with. He's just very down to earth. I mean, once you're kind of around him, you sort of forget who he is and what he's achieved. So yeah, I don't really know what it will be like, to be honest. But I'll find out. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll do some training together after Wimbledon and once we get out there. But yeah, I don't know what it'll be like, but I'm sure I'll enjoy it.
How did it come about?
I mean, there'd been a kind of lot of discussions with the players, the coaches, with the LTA about, yeah, who was going to partner who. It had been talked about that I'd play with Neil.
Neil Skupski.
With Neil Skupski, yeah, and that seemed to make sense. Wasn't really sure what Andy was doing at the time. I don't think he was sure as well. But then he showed his interest in playing the doubles as well, and I think because of my top 10 ranking, that would mean he could get into the doubles as well. So then, yeah, had to make, yeah, kind of it was a bit of a group decision about who I'd play with, and I kind of put my preference for playing with Andy just because, yeah, I mean, just because of who he is, and I think, yeah, he's an incredible player, and to play the Olympics with him would be really special, and I think we could do really well.
Well, I saw you got him a good practice partner at Wimbledon yesterday. He was hitting with Roger Federer, so you obviously got him well trained.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, have you played any practice sets with Andy, or will you start completely from scratch?
No, never have. Yeah, I mean, I think the only time I've been on the court with him, I think, is when we played the Queen's final a couple of years ago. But yeah, I mean, I've been around him a lot at the NTC, and yeah, we'll get on court together before the Olympics, I'm sure. But yeah, it'll be a new experience, but I don't think it will feel too strange after a while. I mean, he's obviously played a lot of doubles with Jamie and Davis Cup, and worked with the doubles coaches, and kind of those similar sort of doubles system that we play. So I don't think it'll take too long to get used to it, to playing together.
But you're not going to play any tournaments between Wimbledon and the Olympics. You're just going to play practice sets in Tokyo.
Yeah, we won't play anything before because we're going, I think, the weekend after the finals of Wimbledon. So yeah, we'll just have that week, and then we'll be going out there, and then we'll be there, I think, 5 days before and just training out there.
You talked about how the British players often hang together at the National Tennis Centre in London, and the fact that you've obviously worked with Andy Murray as part of the British setup. We talked a lot over the recent years about how the French really hang together. Is there the same sense of solidarity among the British players, that you all follow each other, you all chat, you practice when necessary, that actually you are part of a broad team, even if, as in your case, you have a regular partner who is not British?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely seemed that way. Yeah, I think especially after the Battle of the Brits event last year, it kind of brought everybody a bit close together. But yeah, there's a great kind of atmosphere at the tournaments between the Brits hanging out a lot together, watching each other's matches, supporting each other, following their progress, and yeah, it does feel like you're part of the team, which is great because obviously you're out there on your own usually, and it's nice to feel like there's other people supporting you and kind of people that you can always hang out with if you want to. So yeah, it does feel that way.
You mentioned the Battle of the Brits. This was a COVID-induced tournament because none of you could travel, that you ended up playing against only British players. How weird was that, given that you're normally on the global tour most of the time?
It was a bit strange, and I think it kind of exceeded everyone's expectations. It was an amazing event. I think obviously everyone was really looking forward to competing and wanting to compete after the time off that we had, but it really filled that gap so well, and everybody got into it so much. We had the kind of individual event before, and then we had the team event, which was so much fun. I think most of the players love playing any kind of team event, any chance they get, and everybody just really got into it, and it was really competitive, but also a lot of fun. So it was great that we had that while we couldn't play any tournaments.
So what's your reaction when you hear that a young British player, Jack Draper, has drawn the great Novak Djokovic in the first round at Wimbledon?
Yeah, I laughed a little bit at that. I mean, it's tough. I mean, well, you can't really get anything more difficult than that. But I mean, it's an incredible experience for him. I think he's the sort of guy that, well, I don't know him too well, but I feel like he will sort of rise to the occasion, and I think he'll show all that he's got. I mean, I can't say that I think he'll cause an upset, but I think he will put up a good performance and hopefully take a lot from it.
And how is Wimbledon as a tournament for you? Because I mean, you live nearby. I mean, it's your local event. I mean, did you go there as a boy on your bicycle, and now you sort of get official courtesy cars? Or I mean, how has it changed for you, given that you've become a player?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed a lot. I mean, I grew up in Putney, just down the road from Wimbledon, and I'd go there every year. I mean, I'd probably go there 5 or 6 times during the tournament, every chance I could get, just to go down there, walking around most of the time, just with the ground passes, walking around, watching all the matches, just soaking it all in. And obviously dreaming of playing there. Now, obviously, it's become the first time I played there was an incredible experience. And now, obviously, like anything, the more you do it, the more you kind of get used to it, and it's more about the business of trying to do as well as you can in the tournament, and not kind of thinking about how special it is. But I think with Wimbledon, you still do keep a bit of that, or keep more of that than at some of the other tournaments, just because of just what an incredible and special place it is. So obviously I do get really excited every time I go back there.
How old were you when you first went, and what do you remember about it?
I can't actually remember the first time. I mean, I was probably very young, probably about 5 or 6 when I first went. The first time I remember, I think I must have been 9, because I think it was, I can't remember the year actually. I think it was maybe 2001 when Hewitt won, and I think I watched.
He won in 2002.
Oh, was it 2002? Yeah. So I remember I watched the semi-finals. I was on court. Well, it would have been on centre court. I think I watched Xavier Malisse and Nalbandian.
That was on court 1 because of rain.
Was that court 1?
Yeah, because that was the one where Malisse had to have a long injury assessment late in the first set.
Yeah, it's good memory for me there. But yeah, that's kind of the first match that I really remember watching there.
And was there a point at which you had to make a conscious adjustment? This is not my fan shrine. This is actually just a place of work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it changed a little bit the second time that I played there in 2018 when I made the semi-finals with Freddie Nielsen. Because I think even that year before, lost first round, and then the second year I wasn't really playing on the tour. I was playing mostly challengers and had another wild card there, and it was still kind of just soaking up the experience. But then obviously we made that great run, and then kind of realised that wow, yeah, I could actually do quite well here, and realised that I could be challenging at the Grand Slams. So I think after that it changed a little bit of like, yeah, I'm getting to the Grand Slams and I want to win it rather than just enjoying being there.
And you made a bit of history 2 years ago when you were involved in the first ever 12-all tiebreak.
Yeah, not too fond memories looking back on that one. Yeah.
What, because you lost to Continental Peers?
Lost 13-12 in the 5th set. But yeah, that was an amazing match. And yeah, we were 2 sets down, then came back to 2 sets all. We were 5-all in the 5th set, and then had to stop for the light, and then came back the next day, and then lost the tiebreak at 12-all. So yeah, I mean, I suppose it's nice to have that record, I suppose, but it would be a lot nicer if we'd come out on the other side of it.
And has that left you with an opinion on whether the Wimbledon system of a 1-7 tiebreak at 12-all is the best one, or whether do you prefer the Australian system of 1-10 at 6-all, or the American 1-7 at 6-all, or the French no tiebreak?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's strange how if every one of the Grand Slams has a different system to the end. But I think it is good the Wimbledon, what Wimbledon has now, because I think it's good once you get to a 5th set that you don't just suddenly have a tiebreak to decide the match, that you do have a little chance to kind of go on and win it outright. Because I do think that the tradition of kind of carrying on in the final set is good, but obviously you can get the kind of crazy matches like obviously the Isner Mahou, and then I think it was the Anderson and
Isner.
Oh, it was Anderson and Isner again. Yeah, that really long one. So I think it is good that it doesn't carry on for forever. So I think I do like that system of having the 12-all tiebreak.
As we go into Wimbledon, any particular players stand out, or any first round matches that stand out for you? Anything that will catch your eye?
I mean, obviously the Draper Djokovic. I think everybody's going to be watching that one. And then also for the Brits, I think I saw that Evo was playing against Feliciano Lopez, which I thought is obviously quite a tough draw on the grass. There's a lot of interesting first rounds where either they're young guys coming up, or guys that are just outside the seedings against the seeds. So there's some really tough draws.
And even though you're a professional focused obviously on the doubles and on the mixed as well, you're a mixed doubles champion now, having won in Paris with Desiree Krafchick. Congratulations on that. Do you still find yourself a bit of the fan where you think, oh, I'll see how Kyrgios is getting on, I'll see how Federer's doing, I'll even see my new doubles partner Andy Murray, how he's getting on against Basilashvili? Do you find yourself interrupting your own rhythm just to keep an eye on the fan favourites?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm still a tennis fan. I mean, I watch a lot. I watch as much as I can when when I'm not playing, I watch the doubles, I watch the singles. And yeah, obviously the bigger the tournament, obviously at Wimbledon, I'm going to be keeping an eye, especially on all the Brits. But yeah, any of the big matches, I think it's the same for a lot of the players. I mean, most of the guys, they love tennis. We want to see what's going on and following all the other matches, seeing what's happening. And yeah, I know that even if I wasn't there playing, I'd want to be going and being there just watching the matches.
Well, look, all the very best. I hope it's an interesting experience being in a hotel for Wimbledon, and I hope you do very well in the men's doubles and the mixed doubles. And yeah, good luck in the Olympics as well.
Thanks very much.
Well, as Joe Salisbury pointed out, one of the most anticipated matches from round one at Wimbledon is likely to be the defending champion Novak Djokovic opening his campaign against the British teenager Jack Draper. Earlier in the week, Anne-Marie Batson spoke to James Trotman, a consultant coach with the British governing body, the Lawn Tennis Association, and part of Draper's team at the Queen's Club in London.
This week, obviously, I think hopefully is going to be a really important week in his future career, to play at this level at the biggest stage. We've always believed in Jack. Jack believes in himself, but to actually get out there and to perform to that level, the next thing is to be there. There's a lot of work still to do where his ranking's at, to become a regular player on tour who doesn't need wildcards to get in. So really after the kind of hectic grass court swing for the Brits, it will be back to work, getting his conditioning better, making the body robust, developing his game, and getting out there on the Challenger Tour and trying to make a name for himself.
How do you, though, instill belief and confidence in a young player who believes he has that already?
Well, I think there's nothing like doing it. It doesn't really matter. Part of our job as a support team, so Ryan Jones is his lead coach from Jet Academy, who does a fantastic job, and I'm there to support from the Lawn Tennis Association, the LTA's perspective, as a consultant coach and to fill in whenever needed. And part of our job is to instill confidence in players. It's the little talks you're going to have with them. It's how you set up the drills so the player's achieving. It's making sure that you're finishing sessions on a positive note. But equally, there are difficult and tough conversations that have to be had with the player as well. So it's a bit of a balancing act. But for him and his coaching team, really, the guys that are putting it in, as I mentioned before, Ryan Jones, Jack himself, these guys, they're working incredibly hard. This is their life. There's a huge sacrifice, and it's a tough sport, I think, which, I'm sure you're aware of speaking to a lot of the players and coaches. There's lots of ups, lots of downs, but it's nice recognition, that this is why you train. This is why you put the hard work in. This is why you put yourself in pressure situations. You train at a higher intensity. You challenge yourself physically so that when you are in those moments, you're more willing to cope with it.
You mentioned earlier about distractions. Jack is a young lad. He's probably having, his mobile phone's probably not too far away from him. How do you manage that, social media and the mobile phone?
He's pretty switched on with that. I mean, the biggest thing for him, it's the mental fatigue that creeps in these events. He's playing on the bigger stage than he's used to. He's playing against the best players in the world, so you can't lapse, you can't switch off at this level. And then it's what happens, like you said, off the court, and the interviews and various different things. I mean, our job is to try and normalize it, to try and keep the routines the same. Here's your day, this is what it's going to look like. We're getting up at 8, you're having your breakfast here, you've got your warm up going at this time, then you're going to have some food, a little snack. Practices now. After practice, you'll cool down, shower, more food, see the trainer, see the physio, get a flush, massage through your body, rackets in. So you're trying to kind of keep the routine, I think, as close to the same as possible, and I think giving them the structure in the day can really help with that.
What does it mean to you and to Coach Ryan that he has got this wild card and he will now be able to compete on the main tour?
It's trying to keep things in perspective. It's a fantastic, for the All England Club and the LTA to award the wild card to Jack is a fantastic opportunity for him. But it is an opportunity, and for us, it's for me especially, and Ryan will think the same. It's what's he going to learn from it? what's this environment going to show him? Because ultimately that's where we want to get to. He's there on a wild card and we want him to get there on his own ranking. And you have to experience these situations to make those moves and see what the next level feels like and what I need to improve, what I need to keep developing, and also what's working great, what actually is pretty good out there. So it's part of his learning curve to get him ultimately playing on the tour week in, week out.
That was James Trotman, who'll be in the Centre Court Players' Enclosure on Monday at 1:30 p.m. London time for the defending champions' traditional opener. That's half an hour later than normal this year, as part of making Wimbledon COVID compliant. Also on the Monday order of play will be the 2013 and 2016 champion Andy Murray. And as I referenced earlier, Murray's already been on the Wimbledon practice courts this week, hitting with Roger Federer. Not surprisingly, therefore, Murray was asked about his views of the great Swiss and whether this could be Federer's final Wimbledon. But Murray was quick to point out that we should simply make the most of all the moments these legends spend on court.
I've heard quite a few times over the years that he was going to stop, and people have been speculating on that at different times over... I remember when he lost to Tommy Robredo, I think it was, at the US Open. I remember lots of people talking about that then, and that was like... I don't know if that was like 8-9 years ago or something. I mean, I don't know whether he's going to stop playing this year or not. I'd be surprised if he did, the way that he is still able to play and compete. He seems like he still loves it. But yeah, in terms of what he's contributed, I mean, I think he's not the first one to do it, but he certainly transcended the sport. He's a global sporting icon, which... like I said, there has been some before in tennis, but I'm not sure how many have done it like him. I don't know, he's extremely well respected in the world of sport, and it's not just because of the way that the amount he's won, just the way that he's obviously gone about things and the way that he's played the game as well. I think he's always felt that sense of responsibility to the sport and to the media and how he sort of presents himself and stuff. And yeah, he's been a great ambassador for tennis and a great role model, I think, for lots of young players, to look up to. I personally, I'd always seen him as like a competitor and someone I was competing against and like a rival. I'm not saying I certainly haven't achieved anything near like what he had done, but a lot of my career was competing against him in, big tournaments and important matches and stuff. So I didn't always look at him as like a role model. But like watching him at the French Open and stuff the other day, I mean, I obviously sent a thing on social media about it, but it's like, it's amazing what he's still doing and trying to do for sport that he clearly loves. So he's been brilliant, and I hope he keeps playing for as long as he can. And I just don't quite understand because I've experienced it myself, the sort of why people want to always ask those questions about when someone is going to finish. Like, he'll do it when he's ready, and I wish everyone just sort of like encouraging to keep going and keep playing as long as he can, as long as his body can do it, because we'll miss him when it's over.
We certainly will, and if this global pandemic has taught us anything, it's to value what we have today, because who knows what's just around the corner. With all the focus on Djokovic going for his 20th major title and Federer and Murray both back, we've rather overlooked the number 2 seed, Daniil Medvedev. But he travels to Wimbledon after a good week in Mallorca, where he picked up his second title of the year. And he opens on Tuesday against the dangerous German Jan-Lennard Struff in one of the matches of the first round.
We're going to see this year, but normally I like grass. Before was my favorite surface. Before I've done some amazing results on hard courts, so now it's hard courts. But usually I really like playing on grass. The only thing I think that's the surface where we get the most sensations, because some matches you can play the thing with grass, you can play really good and you can lose. If you play a big server or somebody who does serve and volley well and stuff like this, you can lose in a tiebreaker. But I enjoy playing on grass, and I really like the surface itself. It's green, it's calm, I would say. I think the most important thing on grass is concentration, even if it's important everywhere, is concentration, especially on your serve. because your serve is the key. Sometimes you can lose a break and it's going to be enough to lose a set more than on any other surface. And when you have this mindset, it's going to be much easier to be on the return also and to put pressure on your opponent.
Another potential blockbuster will be between Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's now number 3 seed after his 5-set final at Roland Garros, and the American Frances Tiafoe. Recently on ATP Tennis Radio, Tiafoe's coach, the former Wimbledon quarter-finalist Wayne Ferreira, told Seb Lozier what he and Tiafoe have been working on.
Well, he's great. He's a great person, funny kid, got a good personality, very relaxed in a lot of different ways. Sometimes has to be a little bit more serious. So we're working on trying to keep the aspects that are great about him in regards to being everyone's friend and having a likable personality, but working around sort of some of the things of growing up, having more responsibilities, more investment in the game. There's a lot of good about him, but a lot he still has to learn.
I was going to ask you how you make him more consistent, because physically he just looks, he's in such great shape, but the results haven't necessarily come, and there have been some injuries. How do you make him more consistent?
Well, first of all, I mean, he's got a great body structure and he's a strong boy, but he actually wasn't in very good shape when we first started, so we've been working really hard on the physical side, getting him into a much better physical condition, which we all know that when you're feeling physically good, it helps the mental side a little bit too. We've been working on some structural things on the game, serve, volleys, forehand, that kind of stuff, but also trying to spend a lot more time on just the day-to-day stuff, getting more invested from start of matches to finishing, concentration, focusing, investment, trying to stay longer in matches, fight harder. I just do those little things that make big differences. You look at matches, and matches are won and lost by a point here and there, and trying to make him more aware of the finer details and the importance of those little things. But for us, it's a day-by-day process. We're happy with what we did yesterday. I just would like him to go out tomorrow and invest himself and do the right things. I always tell him that you go out and do the right thing, and the outcome is not always in your hands. But if you go and put the best efforts in, hopefully it turns your way. So
your appetite for winning was ferocious. It sounds like you're just the same as a coach.
Yeah, but it's also more just feeling an accomplishment at the end of the day. If you don't win, you don't win. But if you go out to battle each day and you put in 100%, you can't feel bad about the outcome. It's the days where you don't put in the effort and you don't try as hard as you can that you leave the court not feeling like you did what you came out to do. So I'm just trying to, win or loss, it's not really the most important, it's the effort put in to get to the end.
Wayne Ferreira talking work ethics in connection with his charge, Frances Tiafoe. Everywhere you look in the Wimbledon draw, there are fantastic matchups. Another to catch the eye is the clash between Australia's in-form Alex de Minaur and Sebastian Korda, the American whose Czech dad Petra got to the quarterfinals at Wimbledon in 1998. Korda spoke to Anne-Marie Batson this week about his previous experiences at Wimbledon.
I didn't have the greatest relationship in juniors. I made the semifinals in doubles, but I always lost first or second round at Wimbledon. But I've never really had like a real proper training week on the grass. I was with my fitness trainer in the Czech Republic in Prague at our club, and we were kind of just moving around on a couple of soccer fields and kind of just getting the feel of it. And then I came here super early. I was here already Wednesday practicing, so I have a lot of practice sessions under my belt, and yeah, I'm just feeling super comfortable, and I think the grass suits my game, and I'm really enjoying myself.
How are you going to deal with the increased awareness of you, Sebi Korda, making his appearance at Wimbledon as a senior pro?
I'm not going to be too worried about what people say about me, but I think just getting the chance to play my first Wimbledon. I'd never played qualies either, so this is basically my first Wimbledon is going to be directly to the main draw. So it's super cool. I'm going to have my dad there and my coach Dean Golfine and my physio. So I'm going to have the time of my life. Hopefully I can get some really good practices with some top players and just kind of learn and yeah, just keep enjoying myself.
And how do your parents, Petter and Regina, and also Coach Dean, how do they keep you so grounded? Because you seem so relaxed.
Yeah, I don't know. My parents are super big believers in just baby steps and you're doing something that you love, and not very many people can do it. So enjoy the most of it as much as you can. And I have a really great support system around me. My parents and both my sisters, and I have Dean Goldfine, I have Andre Agassi, and I've just added a physio to my team, and having kind of like a team around me, traveling with 2 people, 3 people. It feels like I'm a real professional now, and it's been a lot of fun.
Sebi, why is the mental side of the game so important to you?
I think my mom just kind of installed it into my head ever since I started playing tennis to kind of have a poker face and never let your opponent see how you're really feeling and what's going on. So I think it's a really big tool for me, and I think I use it pretty well.
How good is your poker face?
You tell me. I don't know. My girlfriend always asks me, "Why are you always so mad on court?" And I was like, "I'm not."
Learn about making that transition from junior tennis to the main tour.
Yeah, it definitely took me a couple of years. I spent I think 2 years basically on playing futures and traveling the world and playing kind of the smaller events, and then I slowly graduated myself to the challenger circuit, and now I'm here. But it definitely took a little bit more time than some other of the guys on tour here. But yeah, I'm super grateful for the journey that I took, and I think it really helped me build the character and the player that I am today.
Why do you think it's taking a little bit more time? Did you expect that, or are you happy with the pace that things are going at right now?
I think my parents, they always said, like, baby steps. There's no rush. You can, if you're healthy, you can play tennis until you're 35, and some people are playing till they're basically 40 right now. So it's a lot of time on tour, and there definitely shouldn't be any rush to get here as quick as possible. But I think it really helped me kind of playing the smaller tournaments. At one point I was in Turkey for 6 weeks and basically by myself and just battling. And I think that was one of the biggest moments in my career where I really said, okay, this is where I gotta dig deep and really show my true character.
And I suppose the fun side is watching yourself develop and grow as a player on the tour. How far would you like to go while keeping your feet on the ground, Sebi?
As a tennis player, I would definitely love to win 2 Grand Slams just to have one up on my dad. No, but I would definitely. He's never been number 1 in the world either, so there's some competition there. But I would definitely love to win a Grand Slam and definitely be number 1 in the world. But that's still a long way to go and a lot of hard work to get there.
Nice little family rivalry going on there. And what of the man Korda plays in round 1? Alex de Minaur, who reached the semi-finals at Queen's and won the title in Eastbourne.
I was lucky enough to have a tournament before in Stuttgart to kind of get acclimated to the grass again. But it's a transition that I feel quite comfortable doing. Probably helps that I enjoy the grass so much that I can mentally prepare myself for that transition. And yes, I've been playing some great tennis, getting better each week. So it's all important to hopefully peak at Wimbledon.
What's your first memory of the championships, not as a player?
I mean, there's plenty. The numerous NADAL Federer finals, going to 5 sets. That's remember watching it on the TV all the time, and I was very impatient. So kind of halfway through a set, or if a set was finished, I would go outside and kind of practice on the wall what I had just watched Roger do in the final. So yeah, that's probably my earliest memory.
Of course, you made your debut in 2018. You reached the 3rd round to face a certain Rafael NADAL. How do you reflect on your debut performance at Wimbledon in 2018?
Yeah, it was definitely special. I was able to play Rafa on centre court at Wimbledon. A very, very special feeling. Just to have the walk onto centre court and to see what it all meant. It was an incredible feeling. But obviously, now that I've done that once, I'll be ready for it next time, and hopefully I can go out there and play a good match and just have it as any other match.
So de Minaur versus Korda among the eye-catching early matches at Wimbledon, and as well as the ones we've mentioned during this show, it's also worth looking out for Nick Kyrgios against Ugo Humbert, the Halle champion, Hubert Hurkacz versus Lorenzo Musetti, the 19-year-old among the many Italians taking their place in the draw, plus the one Joe Salisbury identified in our chat, Daniel Evans against Feliciano Lopez. That could be a cracker. So that's it for now. My thanks to all of this week's guests, especially to Joe Salisbury for joining me earlier on his last day before going into the Wimbledon hotel bubble. I'm Chris Bowers. Please do check back in with me next weekend when we'll be looking back on the first week of action and looking ahead to week 2 of Wimbledon. In the meantime, enjoy the tennis.
This is the ATP Tennis Radio Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another show. I'm Seb Lozier, and this week we're joined by one of the real characters on tour. Hailing from South Africa, sometimes to be found in South Korea, owing to the fact that he's the coach of one of the most promising players on tour, Hyun Chung. I am talking about Neville Godwin. Neville and I had a great chat. We touched on his coaching philosophy, his time previously with fellow South African Kevin Anderson. We talked about Chung's biggest achievements so far and his time out through injury. And first of all, whether lockdown had given the South Korean a chance to play catch-up.
He had a couple of niggling things. I mean, his feet are very well documented over the last couple of years. And he's been able to see, we feel like he's come a long way in getting those sorted, as well as he had a couple of hand injuries with deep-seated blisters inside his hand, actually. And he actually had a corn removed from his right hand in April, I think it was. And yeah, he's been practicing a lot. He's been practicing pretty much every day, 5 days a week for the last 3 to 4 weeks. So really excited to get back out on tour, and just trying to figure out how to schedule is not the easiest thing. Obviously where his ranking is, and B, not being 100% sure which tournaments are going to be on, and C, what is the safest way to go about it.
Yeah, with his ranking where it is, he's up above 100 at the moment, isn't it? I think. Obviously, he's a lot better than that. How does that impact on where you guys can play? I mean, does that mean he's going qualies and going that route?
Yeah, so it's a tricky dilemma to have, because obviously we know he if he plays in challenges, he's going to do really well, but we also want to sort of put him in the bigger show. So there's a chance, I think a very real chance, he could get a main draw of the US Open, even though there's no qualifying there. But obviously the USTA have pushed back as much as they're waiting until the very last moment to sort of say yes or no whether they're going to host the event. And as it stands right now today, going to Europe would seem like the more logical option. But obviously, if you get a main draw of a Grand Slam, you'd want to go down that road as well. So it's just we just find ourselves in a tricky spot.
Because this is a top player, isn't it? I mean, next gen champion at the first attempt. Australian Open semi-finalist, a couple of months after that? I mean, how good is this guy?
As well as being his coach, I must be in his top 5 biggest fans as well. I've been courtside for so much. I wasn't with him with Next Gen, but I was with him in Auckland, where he beat John Isner. Then he went to Australia and made a great run. Quarterfinals of Indian Wells, beating Burditch, beating Cuevas very comfortably. Then to the quarterfinals of Miami straight after that. When he's on, he's just incredibly difficult to play against, and he's got all the weapons, he's got all the tools. He knows so many of the guys that he came through with in the juniors with your Kyrgios, your ZVEREV, your Koric, all these guys, and he's very comfortable being there. I mean, even last year he barely played, and his first tournament back in 6 months, and he won a big challenger in China. We went to US Open. He had an incredible 5-set win against Verdasco after coming back from 2 shocking first sets. And then beating Cilic and Raonic later in the year, So what makes him really special in my eyes is he doesn't have to play a lot to play well. And that's really, really unique for a top player.
Why is that? Why can he just drop in and not play? And what is it about his game or about his physical stature? Well,
he's got an incredible belief in himself. He knows exactly what he's going to do when he goes on the tennis court. He knows when he feels good, and he knows when he doesn't feel good. So he generally, when he steps on the tennis court, he's feeling good. I also believe that for a very long time, his practice has always been focused on quality, not necessarily quantity. So he's just able to have that really high level all the time whenever he steps foot on court.
Because he's 24 this year, and other players, as you mentioned, in the same sort of generational stable as him, have they've gone on and done amazing things while he's been struggling with injury. Tsitsipas winning the ATP finals, and Medvedev and Zverev winning Masters. It must have been hugely frustrating for him as well.
Yeah, and he's unique because he hasn't necessarily seen it as a negative. It's nearly been a motivating factor. He goes, well, if those guys can do it, I know where I am in relation to them when I'm healthy, and so I just have to get healthy, and I know what I'm able to do. So he hasn't really. His mindset has been incredible over all the injuries that he's actually endured. That he always just comes back and he focuses, and it's some of the injuries have been related and some of them have been completely unrelated. But he's just got a fantastic attitude towards it, and he knows what he wants to try and do and what he wants to try and achieve. So, like bringing up those guys, I think it actually gives him more confidence rather than demotivates him.
And as you say, the one thing holding him back is these injuries. As his coach, how do you help him manage these injuries? In particular, it sounds like he's got a particular predisposition to blistering, I guess.
Yeah, it's, everyone always talks about the blisters, but it's blisters is just sort of like a word that it's used to kind of describe it. It's not actually exactly blisters. So it's just something that's kind of used to describe what the condition is. Yeah, sometimes it's plausible what happens, and sometimes it makes no sense. So we try to deal with each one as it comes up and try and make the best decision moving forward, and just always have a plan. And I think he works really well if you can just give him a plan and say, okay, right, we're going to do X, Y, and Z for the next 2 to 3 weeks or months, and then we'll have we'll kind of bring our heads up and have a look at where we are and go from there. And he works really well like that, and I think it could be in the long term of his career, it could be quite a blessing in disguise, that he's able to really do these little bite-sized chunks, and he gets used to doing them now because, you don't have to worry about what we're going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years time.
Because all players must play through pain. Kind of goes without saying. Is he a trooper? Will he carry on going, or is he getting to the stage now where he'll say to you, listen, I'm going to do myself more harm than good here?
It's all going to depend on obviously what it is. If he walks on the court with a pre-existing something, maybe he's torn something here or there, and he will say, okay, we'll go out there and see how far you can go. We're not interested in short-term results. We know we want to build a long career for him. Like you say, he's only 24 and he could play very easily into his 30s, which most guys are doing now. And he's already proven that he can win at the highest level. So these are positive signs for him. And we're not going to take any risks. So, if he goes out there and you're in the final of a 1,000, sure, we'll take some risks. Or in the semifinals of a slam, we'll take some risks. If you're in the first or second round of maybe a 250 or a challenger, we're probably going to be less likely to take the risk. So it's just about trying to be smart about how you manage them.
Well, you mentioned the semi-final of the Grand Slam. You've obviously been there, and the blister, as you say, has been well documented. Everyone's seen it, I think, on social media or whatever. Give us an insight into the locker room and walking about before that match, because obviously you're not just going out in any match, as you say. It's a semi-final, Grand Slam, Roger Federer. What were the discussions before the game?
Well, what people is not really that well highlighted or documented is that his feet were actually really, really bad already 3 matches before that when he played Sasha Zverev in the third round, and then against Novak in the fourth round, and in Tennis Sandgren. He was taking anesthetic injections into his feet by the tournament doctor, 20 minutes before the match. So, he's been through a lot of pain, and it was just maybe one hurdle too far. Basically, the podiatrist actually had to come and just about hack his foot to pieces, for him to even be able to walk. So he went as far as he could go, and we've been a little bit unlucky. There's been definitely some unluckiness since then, but his attitude has been great, and he wants to get back and win as soon as he can. And I think when we get him on court, he wins. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, he beat Zverev, Djokovic en route to that final.
Medvedev second round.
Medvedev second round. Quarterfinal or better in 10 events in 2018 as well. Up inside the top 20. It all suggests that he can go right to the top if he gets his body right.
I believe so. I think we're desperate to have a clean run. If we can get 6 to 9 months, 2 to 3 years, whatever it might be, I believe the results are going to come. Like I said previously, when he plays, he wins. It's not very often that he takes many first round losses in a row. when you get him on court, he beats, and he's not scared really to play anyone, which I think the whole tour recognizes. He's great guy to practice with. He's a great guy to be around. Many guys love practicing with him, and people have a very high in the locker room has a very high respect for what he can do.
What's his big shot?
His speed is his biggest weapon. He's got a phenomenal backhand. He'll happily trade backhands with anyone. And he's just got an incredible high tennis IQ, I believe. He just picks the right shot at the right time very often. And that's something to be said.
And where can you still improve him?
Well, I think his ability to shorten points effectively will come into play. We know he's got great defense. He returns well, and I think he can also return better. I think he can serve a little bit smarter and set up his points a little bit better. Many people have said his game is very similar to Novak's, and I can see a lot of similarities there. And when Novak really kicked into another gear, the most impressive thing that improved from my opinion anyways is his serve and his placement and his how dominant he was on serve. He's always in your service game, and then he's holding serve pretty easily, and that's a nice combination.
He must also have been disappointed that an Asian Olympics was postponed. Obviously, there'll be Japanese players in Tokyo, and they'll take a lot of the limelight. But it must be very big on your radar too.
Definitely, he's desperate to play Olympics. It'll be a massive feather in his cap, and he is a big Asian superstar. He's been the one sort of touted after Kei. He had the next results. Obviously, in the last sort of 18 months, we've had a lot of Japanese guys coming through. Nishioka, Taro Daniel, Uchiyama. They've had a lot of guys coming through, but the Asian fan base they're not necessarily that worried about where you're from. They'll support you regardless.
And tennis is a pretty minor sport in South Korea, isn't it? Has there been a Chung effect yet, like there has been in Japan with Kei?
Not yet. He's very popular. It is a popular sport there. It's just not as big as let's say soccer or baseball as well. I think if we can get Chung and then as well Sunu Kwan, who's a really up and coming great young player, I think that'll really help to get two guys in, and I believe if we can get them into the ATP Cup somehow, that'll really kickstart it even more.
You're listening to the voice of Neville Godwin, coach of Hyun Chung, and formerly of fellow South African Kevin Anderson too, for 3-4 years. In fact, Neville, you won ATP Coach of the Year with Kevin before you two went your separate ways. I was wondering also what you learnt from working with Kev.
Well, it was an incredible learning adventure, actually, with Kevin. We went through so much, and I'm always grateful to him for giving me the opportunity to get back on tour. And, he's such a professional. He really tries to cross every T, dot every I, and he doesn't want to leave any stone unturned. And that really, you had to be on your toes working with him, because he was always looking for sort of something new to improve on. And, he wasn't really happy with you saying, well, no, let's just do what we've been doing better. He wanted something to improve better, to improve on. So there was always a big challenge with Kevin, but I think, he was a great guy to work with, and he brought so much to the table. He a lot of energy, a lot of focus to what he was doing, and sometimes even nearly over-disciplined, if that's a thing.
And on paper, the US Open final really stands out. What were you doing with him at that time that obviously worked so well?
That was sort of a culmination of a lot of things that we worked on in 2017, starting already on the clay. Kevin, earlier that year, he came back from I think his ranking was about 90, maybe even 85, 90s in the world. And he had a penchant for being quite hard on himself, and sometimes not inputting enough of the positive energy into himself. And we started way back on the clay, really against his nature, really started being more positive and searching for affirmations and finding things to be positive about. And I think people will remember that he was particularly sort of vocal in US Open, in Toronto and Washington earlier that year. He had a really great summer, and as well, he had a great Wimbledon. He lost in a very tough 5-set, I believe, was to Sam Querrey at Wimbledon. So he could see he was on the right path, and it was a massive personality change for him on court to actually come out and be so verbal and so vocal.
Yeah, he really did it was noticeable when he started doing that. That was very much a conscious thing.
Definitely. it was, he had myself, Jay Bosworth, who still works with him, his psychologist as well. And, we were basically the team. He made a decision to do something, and we were the sort of people just to have to hold him accountable for it on a daily basis, because he knew that his potential was to slip back into his sort of more shy, calm self. And that was not going to work. That was not going to get him to where he needed to get to.
Well, it definitely worked. As I mentioned, you won ATP Coach of the Year that year. I mean, out of all the coaches out there on tour, what did that mean to you?
Well, that was massive, because it's not voted for by the fans, it's voted for by your peers. So it was just a massive sort of feather in your cap, and like recognition by your fellow coaches. They acknowledge that you're actually doing a good job, and that you know what you're talking about, and that you've really helped someone to get a lot better. And I think that's why it means so much to whoever wins the Coach of the Year. It's quite a prestigious award amongst the coaches, because it's voted by your peers. It's a great initiative by the ATP that they recognize, that the coaches get to recognize each other.
Just finally on Kevin, I think we were all surprised when you did go your separate ways. Was it just the things just come to an end? Was there a specific thing that that made it happen?
No, we had a beautiful 4 years together, and we sat down after US Open, and we had the Asian and European swing after that. We recognized what he'd done well, and we sort of realized, well, maybe it'd be better for him to move on, to find a different set of eyes. And I think he made a great call. He had Brad Stein in his corner for a year, and he pushed on afterwards. Also, unfortunately, he's also dealt with injuries. So in my 7 years on tour, I've dealt with quite a lot of injury layoffs.
Neville, I'm really interested, and especially as a former winner of the ATP Coach of the Year, to dig some more into your particular take on coaching, because there are so many different ways to approach it and so many different philosophies. But what would you say is your, coaching philosophy, if you have one?
I think I'm a pretty calm person. I bring a good energy to the court. I think I'm pretty well organized. I like to let the players sort of dictate their goal setting. I'm not sort of a dictator who says, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, or we're going to do this and that. And, I like to have the player not lead the way, but he has to have a big say in it, because at the end of the day, it's his career, it's his choices, and he's the one out on the court that has to make the decision. So, I'm your biggest sort of fan when I'm in your corner, and I'm going to really do my best to help you by trying to see things, but trying to keep everything organized so that literally all you can do is just get out there and play and compete as best you can.
What makes you decide as a coach when you want to work with a player?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I don't believe that there's one coach for every single player. So there has to be a chemistry, there has to be an understanding, and there has to be good communication between you. You have to really agree on what you're going to do, and you can't agree all the time, but it's how the information is communicated and how you get along. And if the player wants to talk, I've got to let him talk and tell me what's going on, and just listen to the player. It's not something sort of tangible that you can say, oh, it's X, Y, or Z. It's just a feeling or a sensation. Oh, yeah, we could work together and we can actually do something good.
And when there are disagreements, not that I'm saying there are lots of disagreements, but when there are, it must almost be like a marriage, because you are together so much of the time.
Absolutely. It's like any relationship. It's you have to talk it out and, or put your point forward. And I think probably one of the things I missed out on saying earlier is, in my opinion, one of the very most important things of being a good coach is you actually have to not have that much of an ego. You have to really try and listen and be the lesser ego of the two people, because, obviously these guys are out there making millions of dollars. They're playing on big courts in front of a lot of people. And I just don't think it works that well if the coach has got a bigger ego than the player.
And you mentioned goal setting before. I guess it comes as much from the player as from the coach. Is there a right way and a wrong way for you to set goals, be it short term, long term? What's the good sort of balance for setting achievable goals, I guess?
Yeah, I think it all comes from, once again, it's player led. So whatever the player is comfortable with, and you have to push them as close to their comfort zone as what you can possibly do, and explore that comfort level where they're happy to get pushed to. And, some players, you can say, oh, we want to go for 40 or 50 match wins this year. So another player might say, okay, I want to win 3 tournaments this year. It's all relative to the person, what they're comfortable with, and what they, because sometimes if you set the goals too unrealistically or too low, it can be actually more harmful than good. So it's very important just to have open dialogue about it and know exactly what you're trying to achieve.
So to come back to Chung as a good example here, I mean, I guess where he's been in terms of, he's been out, his ranking at the moment is, 140 or whatever it is. What kind of targets are you setting together this year and next year, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, the first target is obviously his health. We just, once he gets fully healthy and we can get a good clean run of, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, then we'll start sort of reassessing, okay, well, where do we want to get to? Obviously, he always wants to be, main draw of slams. One thing about he's not really too bothered about playing qualifying or even playing challenges. He knows his level and his standard is really high. So the massive focus for the last sort of 2 years has just been on purely trying to be healthy, play enough, not overplay to get enough match play, and then go from there. And then once we really start building up a head of steam, I think then we can start looking at different goal sets. Okay, we want to try win 1,000, we want to win 500, whatever the case may be. We have to start with winning a 250. Hasn't won any of those yet.
On the mental side of things, the mental side of the game is so important, obviously. As a coach, how do you help a player become more mentally resilient?
So many of these guys are working with sports psychologists now. So my job basically is to have a relationship with a sports psychologist, and we relay information between each other and as to what we're going to actually present to the player. And the biggest thing with him is, the more stuff that we can take off of his plate, so in preparation, the better he will play. So the job is to take care of all the preparation, however possible we can. And that makes them mentally more resilient, I believe, So if a player walks on the court and he feels like he's prepared for that particular duel or battle, he'll run through walls for you.
And what about dealing with pressure, Neville? Is there a way of helping them deal with clutch points, break points down, closing out a match? Or are some players simply just better in those moments than others?
Well, I think there are people that are just better and expect themselves to deliver in those moments because they have. You take someone like Chung, he just always delivered. He had a stellar junior career. I mean, he had one of the most outstanding junior careers of all the guys on tour. So he just has this inner belief that when it's game time and it's time to perform, it's just going to happen. And it's just because he has years and years of data of that. So, it's once again, for me, it always comes back to preparation. And if you've prepared the guy as well as he can be prepared for a situation, you're playing with the best players in the world who are able to adapt to many things. So it's how you adapt on the match day. And I've always said, you can probably prepare a player for up to about the first hour of a match until the other guy sort of figures something out and changes. And then your player has to be adaptable and flexible to be able to think on his feet.
If you were to work, though, with a player who perhaps does struggle in those key moments, is there a way that you'd kind of coax them out of that?
It comes down to the big moments. It comes to execution. So if you give people, okay, you're in a big moment, so you're obviously going to have some kind of an emotion attached to it. You're going to be nervous, you're going to be angry, you're going to be scared, you're going to be excited, whatever it's going to be. So the first sort of agenda would be to take the emotion out of it. So okay, now make an emotionless decision and just go and execute. So that would be my sort of first goal to give to anyone is any, as we know, just in normal life, any decision based on emotion is going to be a bad one. So obviously in a pressure situation for a tennis player, that emotion is heightened. So as much as possible, you have to take the emotion out of it and just go out and execute and see the facts.
Yeah, fascinating. That's I guess the mental side of the game. In terms of the physical side of the game, getting the body right, I mean, we've spoken a little bit about it already. What would you say is the ideal way for you to, and I know you have trainers and things to do this as well, but what's the ideal way in terms of rest and training blocks in a normal season?
Yeah, so most guys, I mean, we unfortunately we haven't even been able to do it with Jan yet, but I would say up to 4 tournament weeks before a rest. 4 tournament weeks would probably be about the max that most guys would do. And then you'd need at least maybe 1 or 2, and it just depends on how you look at your season. How you lead up to a slam. Some players really like to play the week before a slam. Some players don't want to play the week; they just want to be practicing and feeling really fresh for the 2 weeks of the actual slam. So you have to figure that out, and it takes a couple of years to actually figure out what is best for each individual player. Some guys get mentally tired from playing a lot. Other guys get mentally stimulated from playing a lot. So it's really knowing your player, sitting down and making sure that they need a good sort of rest patterns throughout the year and time to get their body back into stability. Because as we know, when they play in competition phases, it's very difficult to sort of maintain your body strength and stuff like that, because obviously your matches are long and they're quite draining.
In terms of the game and the actual game you play, are you a fan of focusing in on one big weapon? I guess with Kevin Anderson, it would be the serve and the forehand, or are you a fan of building an all-round game and a player not having any weaknesses?
Well, I think ideally you'd want them to have an all-round game with no weaknesses, but that's not really possible now. I mean, the guys that come with such amazing strengths, so we could just about dissect anyone in the top 10, and they've probably got 2 or 3 major strengths. And the thing is to bring your weaknesses sort of up to par, if you like, and make sure that they're not going to cost you matches. So your strengths are always going to be what's going to win your matches, and your weaknesses have to be good enough so they're not going to necessarily lose you matches, and they're less exploitable for your opponents.
What's the most popular or the most frequent weakness, would you say, among, say, top 20 players?
It's a very difficult. The top 20 guys don't have many weaknesses. That's for a fact. But it'll be on any given day on a particular surface. If you take, I don't know, maybe someone like Team, his results on grass have been the least good. Same with ZVEREV, sort of his slam results have been the least good. So you'd have to look at, there's guys that like to play deep in the court. There's guys that like to play more up the court. So you'd have to look to try and expose them in a psychological and in a movement way. And obviously they're the best in what they do for a reason. They've done it time and time again. So you have to just try and marry up what you do well against their strengths and weaknesses.
And in terms of the way your players play, as a former serve volleyer yourself and someone who liked to go forward, obviously you played a lot of doubles. Are you big on them going forward? Ideally, would you want all of your players to be going forward to the net and killing off points, or is it difficult to sometimes get players doing that these days?
No, I think it's a process, and if it's possible, it can be very effective, because obviously to win a point with a volley is supposedly easier, but you have to understand the processes that are going to get you to the net and to be able to create an easy volley put away. And that's something that we worked really, really hard with Kevin on for a long time. Not necessarily volleying better, but sort of working on how to get to the net, what shot to come in behind, where to cover, those sort of things. And those are the more important things. So I think everyone needs to have that aspect of playing in the forecourt to their games, because you need to learn how to shorten points effectively. And also it can put your opponents under a lot of pressure. So once again, it comes back to knowing your player. And, there's somewhere, like, for example, with Jan, I trust his tennis IQ immensely. He just makes the right decisions, and he'll come in when I least expect it, but it would be the right play. So I would like to see him play a little bit closer to the baseline, and he does volley amazingly well. So I'd like to see him come in more, but that's not really his bread and butter, if you like.
The way the game's gone with the technology and everyone hitting such a big ball now, does it sadden you in a way that you're going to see fewer people going to the net? Is that just a fact of modern tennis?
I think it's just a fact of modern tennis. I mean, what I would like to see, I think if you look at the numbers across all the surfaces, there's a sort of quite a big similarity, even from grass to clay to hard court, in terms of the ball speed, the ball coming off the court. There's not massive differences. So guys can kind of play the same way across the surfaces. Whereas if you went back to sort of like the early to mid 90s, Wimbledon to Roland Garros was this massive difference, and you saw different guys doing well. And I do miss that a little bit. And I think it created a little bit, not necessarily a higher skill level, just a different skill level.
Yeah, I have to say, I would certainly put my hand up and be one of the people who misses a good serve volley. I think it's unfortunately an increasingly a lost art. But anyway, just let me ask you about coaching younger players as well, because I know you've done that a fair bit in South Africa, your native South Africa. And for the listeners who obviously, everyone has a kinship with coaching kids, and obviously everyone's played as a kid. What's the secret to developing a promising youngster?
Well, I mean, I can speak more freely from South African perspective, and we in South Africa, we really have a massive multi-sport background. So from 10 years old, you're playing cricket, soccer, rugby, field hockey, swimming, water polo, tennis. You're playing a multitude of sports. You're running cross country, you're riding your bike on mountain bikes and things like that. So from me, what I've always focused on in South Africa is to really make sure that if I start coaching kid at 10, 11, 12, that by the age of 18, they're actually still playing whatever. In our example, it's obviously tennis. Because too many kids get lost along the way by pushy parents or doing too much. And, there's other countries where playing a single sport growing up is the norm. But we just come from a multi-sport background. And I just think keeping kids in the sports is the most important thing. I mean, to go and pick up an iPad or play PlayStation or all these things is becoming much, much easier for them. So really to encourage sports and make them enjoy it, and the more, generally speaking, the more people enjoy doing something the more they want to do it, the more they do it, the better they're going to get.
It's really interesting that you say that South Africa is such a huge multi-sport nation. I guess there are other nations like that. Do you think it's an advantage to be playing more sports younger, or do you think it's an advantage just to be focusing in on one?
I think either can be an advantage, just depends on how you look at it. From South Africa, you get to learn from a very early age how to compete in tennis, cricket, soccer, golf, rugby, cross country, and you get to learn how to compete in a multitude of different things, not only in one. So you don't sort of become sport specific. However, and I always sort of allude to maybe like an Eastern European mindset where they grow up playing far less sports, so they become much more singularly focused. Whereas our kids have so many more options to do things, largely due to the weather and the facilities that we have available. I mean, my kids can grow up, they can play tennis, golf, cricket, whatever they want on amazing things, and it's very affordable, where a lot of countries in the world, they can't do that. So I think both are very valid, but it just depends on the situation.
If you are going down the multi-sport route, though, at what age do you need to be only playing tennis if ultimately you're going to be a tennis player, do you think?
Well, I mean, what we've seen is that, guys playing well into their 30s. And I mean, if you went back 30 years, it was sort of like touch and go, where the guys would go to college because it's I'm going to miss out on too much. And I think now, with the amount of money that there is in the sport and the longevity that people show that you can play well into your 30s, I would say that single sport specialization period has actually gone up to maybe even as much as 16 or 15 or 16. But you obviously have to play at a very high level before that. And then, when you want to start, okay, at 15 or 16, I really want to focus in, go for it, and then, then go after it.
Neville, I know you're still relatively young in your coaching career, but what are the best things you've learnt so far in your coaching time?
You can never know everything. You got to consistently be learning. I have a ton of really good friends, a lot of time together, drinking wine, maybe having a barbecue, and just talking about tennis. And it's fascinating to always learn, get other people's viewpoints of, how did this match pan out? And, I'll watch a match and I go, oh, I saw X, Y, and Z. And they'll go, well, I saw something completely different. And when you actually hear what they say, sort of will blow your mind, because everyone has these interesting viewpoints. And I've learned so much from my fellow coaches and as well from the players, just because things have changed so much. So it's just been an amazing journey, and it will continue to be for me as long as I'm still coaching.
My thanks to Neville Godwin, and for an extended version of that chat, including the best and worst advice he thinks he's given along the way, check out our ATP Tennis Radio exclusives page on TuneIn. Join us next week when we'll hear from some of the greatest players to have played the game. That is a promise. And we'll bring you a fascinating interview with American player Michael Mmoh and his insight into being a young black man who's also a tennis player in the current social climate. Join us then.
If you like this podcast, please search the iTunes store for ATP Tennis Radio to leave a review.
Welcome to the latest ATP Tennis Radio podcast, the first since that remarkable fortnight at Wimbledon that has brought significant change, you have to say, to the world order. I'm Seb Lozier, and over the next little while we will be reflecting on that and also throwing forward to Hamburg and the USA hardcourt season with Kevin Anderson, runner-up at Wimbledon, Roger Federer, the man he beat in the quarterfinals, Dominic Thiem, Kei Nishikori, Steph Tsitsipas, Sasha Zverev and others, and all that in the company of Claire Curran, former Fed Cup player who's worked with a number of British players over the years and was at Wimbledon as a commentator, Claire, both for TV and radio. And first of all, how are you? What a fortnight it was, eh?
It was an amazing fortnight. I'm lucky I've had a couple of days just to recover from it because just so much happened in those 2 weeks. So many great matches. Great to see the resurgence of Djokovic at the end of it and how he finished off Wimbledon. It was a great couple of weeks, exhausting, but because there were so many long matches as well.
Highlight for you?
There wouldn't be one highlight. I mean, the match in the quarterfinals, Nadal against Del Potro, that was probably one of the best matches that I've seen in Wimbledon, and then obviously those two epic semi-finals. But I think it's just the fact that seeing Djokovic now come back and he's starting now again to challenge those top two, Federer and Nadal. That's going to make things really interesting for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, and how significant is that, do you think, to the real top bracket of the game that he is now back and really looks like he wants to be back too?
It was the fact that he got back so quickly, having got to the final of Queen's Club. He looked good at Queen's, but he wasn't quite there, and commentators, and I commentated on that final, were thinking he's good, but it'll be the end of the year. It was how quickly he got himself back into Grand Slam winning form. And he could be, once again, he could be unstoppable from what we've seen those last couple of weeks at Wimbledon.
But part of the magic as well of the grass court season is that it's so short, of course. It's a shame in a way, isn't it? I mean, you played at Wimbledon yourself. It would be great to see more.
It's tricky because when you come into Wimbledon as a player for the very first time, you don't have that big build-up. It's been great in the last couple of years that they've added on that kind of extra week, but I think the fact that it is such a short season also makes the entire event so special because it's just a little amount of time that you're there on the grass courts, and you really savour every moment that you get out there.
One man who savoured every moment, and certainly at Wimbledon, and will be relishing getting back out on the hard courts too, is Kevin Anderson, runner-up, of course, at Wimbledon. Not surprisingly, ATP Uncovered honed in this week on the giant South African.
After an incredible fortnight in SW19, Kevin Anderson reflected on his Wimbledon final run. 2 weeks he'll never forget. Finding himself in a quarter-final against one of the greats of the game, Anderson gave his all to make it to the final four.
Knowing I was walking onto the court with Roger, the first thing was to try and separate, Roger Federer, the icon of our sport, and, another tennis player on that day. Coming back from 2 sets to love down against him, was a great win for me, probably one of the best of my career, if not the best one I've had in my career. Of course, that put me through to the semis, playing John then. John and I go back to our college days. Obviously, going into the 5th set, it was a bit of war of attrition at the end. I really had to dig deep, and it was very emotional getting through that kind of match. It put me through to the finals. After my semi-final match, I was definitely feeling it. When you're on court for that length of time, the feet take a bit of a beating. I woke up at 4:30 after only maybe sleeping for an hour, and my feet were literally felt on fire. The sheets couldn't even touch my toes, and I told my wife, you need to go and call my physio, Charlie, as he could see that there was a lot of inflammation in my feet, so he had to try and actually work it out. But it's a job that requires all hours of the day, especially after that sort of match, but that's sort of what it sort of takes out of you, especially to get through some of these long matches.
Then came the final. After 2 5-set runs and epic tiebreaks, the tall man was tired. But a final of Wimbledon is a special thing.
You try to treat it like another day, and I think I actually did an okay job with that. Getting ready for the finals of Wimbledon, always going to be a special day. There's always going to be some nerves. I think that I was in the finals of US Open, helped a little bit. Didn't get off to a great start, unfortunately. I started playing much better in the third set. Would have loved to have that form, early on in the match to give myself a chance. It was unfortunately a little bit too late, but all in all, obviously there were so many positives to take from this whole fortnight. Reaching top 5 for the first time is something that feels really good. And in 2015, I broke through to the top 10, and the next goal was top 5. And even in our WhatsApp group, we relabeled it to T5K, which was top 5 Kevin, and that's the goal we were working towards. And took a bit of a roadblock in 2016. I was pretty badly injured, and my ranking went all the way down. But I kept that belief the whole time. It wasn't always easy. That's where I relied on the team. My wife's support was crucial in that period of time. And here I am, in the last sort of 18 months, really, have gone from 80 to now 5 in the world. So it's time to, reset my goals. I believe I can, get higher, and that's something I'm really excited at doing.
Claire, such a hard worker, deserves all the success he gets.
Well, what a nice guy. I mean, the way in which he dealt with the semi-final win against Isner, you wouldn't have known that he had won that match, and just what he said in the press conference afterwards, and dealing with the fact that these are such long matches. And then afterwards, obviously, when he played and lost the final, I thought the fact that he said in the prize speech that he made reference to the fact that he hoped that in 15 or 20 years, a young kid from his country, South Africa, was going to be standing there and was going to be inspired by him making the final, and he wanted that young kid to do better and to go on and win Wimbledon. But I mean, incredible man. But the tennis that he played, the quality of his tennis, from 2 sets to love down against Federer in the quarterfinals, and he was match point down, to seeing how he just dominated that 5th set, and he did off the ground. Federer was off the baseline, slicing quite a lot, couldn't really hit topspin, couldn't dictate play at all. You could see from his court positioning, Federer was behind the baseline, whereas Anderson was stepping right up onto the baseline. And the way that he was able to just keep producing that level of tennis under, when he was serving second, and he was always kind of serving to stay in the match, it was so impressive, that victory against Federer. But then the next day, just coming back out again 2 days later and following that up against Isner and going into that kind of match in the same way in the 5th set that he had against Federer. Truly, mentally and physically a remarkable performance. It was difficult for him in the final. He was so nervous, and you could see it from the very way that he set up to serve in the very first point. He looked shaky with his feet, and the first serve kind of went pretty far out in terms of wide. He was nervous, and also physically he would have been very, very tired.
Well, he was saying there that his feet literally felt like they were on fire.
Yeah.
And presumably that is such an important part of the body. Would he be feeling, from a former player's perspective, presumably he's feeling like he can't totally trust his body at that stage?
It's so difficult to overcome. I'm very few people, if anybody, have really had to deal with what he did in the build-up to that final. But physically, when you're not in the best shape and you're going into the very biggest match of your life against a guy who is going to return your serve better than anybody and is going to make you work, he's going to really punish you out there. Those are pretty difficult things to have to deal with. And not only that, but then you've got the expectation of a Wimbledon final and how you want to perform at your very, very best. But he dealt with it in the best way he possibly could. And the 3rd set of that match, he started to really relax and to feel comfortable out there. And it was a shame for him that he just couldn't take one of those set points and take that match into a 4th set.
And he's reached a career high. I want to ask you about that, whether he can perhaps go any further. But first, he obviously played that gargantuan match against a gargantuan man, another one, in John Isner. Both having great late career bursts, you have to say. Both products of the US collegiate system, like yourself. What is that? And that came to the fore a little bit, as you'd expect, during the second week of Wimbledon. What is it that the collegiate system does in America to really help people on the way as an alternative route to the pros?
I always think for people that go to college in America, you get out of it what you put into it. And if you are desperate to become a professional tennis player, and maybe you're not mature enough in terms of mentally or physically, and also you might not have the finances to go out there and play on the tour, the college system is fantastic for you, because you get the opportunity to play in a team environment. You're surrounded not only by brilliant tennis players, but also potentially world-class athletes. So when I was at university, I was at UC Berkeley, and the swimming program, for example, at Berkeley was incredible. In the year 2000, the year that my last year I was there, 3 out of the 6 guys that were in the top 6 in the Olympic 50-meter final, they were all at Berkeley. Gary Hall Jr. actually was only training there. Anthony Irvin, he won the gold medal. He was at Berkeley, and Bart Kiezerowski, who finished 6th. They were all there, and you're surrounded by Olympians, whilst in this kind of impressive sporting environment, and that can only inspire you as well as anything else. But it gives you time as well to develop as a person, and also to develop your game, because especially in the men's game, and you look at those 2 guys, Isner and Anderson, their games are dominated by big serves and coming into the net and playing big ground strokes. Now, that takes a little bit of time to develop, and I think the college route for those particular guys was absolutely perfect, because they just have that freedom to develop their game in a less pressurized environment. But also, on the other hand, when they come out of the college system and they've played so many matches, their level of performance, it's high that they can kind of bypass the smaller challenger level. Sometimes if you're a player and you spend too long in there, you can build up a bit of scar tissue, and it's tricky to kind of get out of it. So those guys had great success in college, and then they were able to just move straight from there into the ATP tournaments, which was perfect.
Do you enjoy it? What did it do for your tennis game?
I would do it again tomorrow. If I had the opportunity to do it again, I would do it. There was a lot of strengths for me. I was able to develop my tennis game. I was also able to get a really good education at the same time. But I learned a lot about myself as well when I was at college. I didn't know whether or not I was ready to be a professional tennis player at 18. I also didn't know if I was good enough to be a professional tennis player. And when I graduated and I'd won the NCAAs in doubles, I was desperate to go out there and play doubles and singles on the tour, and I felt like I had the ability to be a top 100 player, and it came from me. It didn't come from somebody else either. So after college, it was something that I'd earned. I'd earned the opportunity to go out there and play on the tour, and I felt at that point that I was ready for it.
Back to Anderson and Isner, both career high rankings as of this week. 5th and 8th respectively. Do you expect either of them to go any higher than that? I mean, can either of them go better?
Well, those are pretty high rankings, and when you think about the players, that are ahead of them, and you've got now Djokovic, who's kind of coming up behind, who's going to be really pushing as well at that US Open. It's going to be tricky to go further ahead than that. These are incredible rankings, but I don't see any reason why they don't go into the hard court season now and feel really confident. I mean, Anderson made the final last year of the US Open. The way that he's hitting his ground strokes and the way that he's dominating and dictating with his serve, he's got to feel exceptionally confident. And Isner's obviously made his first quarterfinal of a Grand Slam. He's playing better than ever. He's working harder than ever. He just seems so relaxed. And this is a great opportunity for them to kind of build on that success from Wimbledon.
Yeah, and John obviously won Miami earlier in the year. He's now going to attack the US Open Series and the hard court season. We'll talk about that shortly. But first, there's one more clay court 500 in Hamburg, where a whole bunch of usual suspects are descending on the dirt. The star attraction will be Dominic Thiem, playing in Hamburg for only the 2nd time, the world number 9. Uncovered have also spent some time with him this week and found out something about his dreamy backhand that I must admit, never knew.
Thiem adding many hundreds, if not thousands, to his supporters club. Deuce here, Nadal is going for the drop shot, Thiem is scampering in, he's got there, he's gone cross court, can Nadal get there? He slices up the line, Thiem rips a winner! Cross court backhand! There it is again!
I have quite a lot of memories from back then. I mean, I didn't change from one day to another. I think it was a process of a couple months or maybe even half a year. I mean, I practiced already the one-handed backhand. In the matches I still played two-handed, so I mixed it up a little bit, and then slowly I changed to only one-handed backhand, and it was a tough period, the first weeks and months, and even 1-2 years probably, because everybody was playing on my backhand, of course, and I couldn't do that much damage anyway, and I did way more mistakes than with the two-handed, so it was tricky. 12 years old, you don't have any doubts, probably you just want to play tennis and you're just dreaming of having a career, so I think it was a good age to switch. I had a wrong technique at the two-handed backhand, which of course I cannot remember anymore. This was one reason, and then I think for the type of player he wanted me to be.
Gunter's got work to do.
The one-handed backhand is easier. You can slice and you can do some more things than with the two-handed, I guess, and the player he saw in me when I was older, or when I was 18, 19, when I come to the top, I think it suits more with a one-handed backhand.
Team backhand is a thing of beauty.
There were some moments when I didn't have good results when I was 14, 15, where sometimes I was wishing back my two-handed backhand, of course, but now, of course, I know that it was completely the right decision.
Claire, it's a thing of beauty, the team backhand, so much so that you'd almost have expected it always to be the same. But it wasn't. He was a double-hander.
What's surprising, whenever you look at the way that he sets up for his backhand, the way the racket goes up and then it goes down, and the early preparation for it, and the way that he just swings so sweetly through the ball, and he executes that line backhand to absolute perfection. You'd be shocked to think that at one point that he had his left hand on the racket, but it's probably one of the most beautiful shots in the game, that backhand, and it can dominate play so effectively, but also he can just bring in that slice with it as well, which makes it even tougher to play against because he has that element of variation, and that's a shot that I think is only going to get better for him.
And I've asked a lot of people this same question, certainly coaches. If you're working with young players, are you just... My kids are learning tennis, they're both taught the double-hander. It's almost by default. Do you go straight to the double-hander as a coach for children, or at what stage would you say, actually, you can go with the single-hander?
I think the majority of coaches go for the double-hander. It's a natural thing, but I think if you have a player, a child in front of you, that's natural instinct is just to take that left hand off the racket and wants to play with the single-handed backhand, you've got to have an element of allowing them to play to their own personality, to let them to be free, because otherwise, if you're coaching a player too much at a young age, you're taking away their natural ability. So I would say as a coach, you can only slightly influence, but don't be too much of a dictator when it comes to putting on the second hand onto the racket.
But is it also with kids the fact that, a lot of younger kids aren't necessarily, they're still fairly ambidextrous, so they do get a lot of strength coming through from the left hand if they're right-handed as well. Would that sort of play into it as well?
It's a big part of it. I mean, strength is such a big part of being able to play that single-handed backhand. Strength, your core strength, your wrist strength, everything about it. It's so difficult with that single-handed backhand to be able to step into a ball which is moving at speed towards you and being able then to change direction down the line. And when you look at, say an example of Novak Djokovic, whenever he's hitting a double-handed backhand against the big left-handed forehand coming into him, he's able to, with that left hand, just have more control and more strength to be able to change it down the line.
And to flip it around a bit, on a similar note, if someone's out there listening to this and they've got a single-hander and they dabble with a little bit of slice, a little bit of that, a club recreational player, is it ever too late to go to a double-hander? What would you say to them if they did want to try out the double-hander?
I would say go for it. And it's the same way as if you are a double-hander and want to try out and play with a single hand. I always think that, and I always go to it, that it's so important that you teach somebody a shot which matches their personality to an extent that if you're a player and your natural instinct is to play a single-handed backhand, then you've got to develop that. And there's nothing worse than seeing a tennis player, whether it's a club player or even a professional player, playing a shot which they don't really fully own. And you think, that doesn't really match them that well. That person should have a single-handed backhand. And you want to be able to create that as a coach. You want to be able to create and give a player just the freedom to be able to make that choice that best suits them.
Okay, well, Philipp Kohlschreiber, another man with a single-handed backhand, of course, leads the German charge in Hamburg this week on home soil. But another German player, 11 years his junior at 23, has also been making headway this season. Let's hear from him.
Hi, I'm Max Marterer and I'm from Nuremberg, Germany. My father was the one who was playing tennis in our family. He took me to our club in Fürth. They hosted a challenger also a couple of years ago. Yeah, that's how I started tennis. I think in Australia I did much better, being more calm in the deciding moments, and that was also what helped me for the next couple of months now. I'm staying a little more relaxed, and that's I think for me the key fact that helps me winning some matches here now. When I was in pre-season, I set my goal to win some tour matches and just doing some points on the ATP tour, what was like missing a little in the last couple of months. But now I think I'm ready to go for a little more. Like now the next target is top 50 end of the year. Yeah. I'm a big football fan. I'm cheering for a smaller club in Germany who's playing Bundesliga, is TSG Hoffenheim. Roger was my idol. When I talked first to Roger, I was finishing the last match on a smaller court, and he was also playing on center court against Struff, just finished also late. Yeah, he congratulated me for my win, and that was a nice moment for me.
Max Marterer there, 23 years old, setting himself the goal. He's actually broken into the top 50, setting himself the goal to stay there, I guess, by the end of the year. Is that healthy for a young guy to be setting that kind of goal, or would you want him to be looking higher?
Absolutely, to be setting goals. It's such an important aspect of the game, and you've got to set goals, but also be willing to look at them and readjust them and change them based on how you're doing. And sometimes you set a goal and you say, I want to be top 50 in the world in 6 months' time, but you do that, within 2 months. So you have to kind of keep changing. I think he's doing the right thing with that.
Those are the thoughts of Claire Curran with us on the ATP Tennis Radio podcast. Remember, you can let us know your thoughts at ATP Tennis Radio on Twitter. Claire, Max mentioned Roger Federer as his idol. The same goes, I'm sure, for a lot of the guys around the same age as Marterer. And Rob Curling met up recently with the world number 2.
20-time major champion and quarter-finalist at Wimbledon this year, Roger Federer is one of the greatest ever to pick up a tennis racket. We sat down with the Swiss maestro to discuss how to make it to the top.
I guess for me it took a while, I grew up in a town in Switzerland called Basel. I was born there, lived there until I was 14 years old. For me, it became more of a reality when I became #1 junior in the world back in '98. And I remember hanging up a note on my door saying, like, if you want to knock, here's to #1 junior in the world. I think this is really when the dream came alive, that potentially I could achieve such a great thing like becoming world #1.
Backhand return from Nadal is long! Federer has won his 3rd title of the year at 35. This extraordinary career just gets better and better. He's beaten his great rival now for the 14th time in his career.
Eventually Nadal came and he made life hard for me, and I had a hard time accepting that he's going to be my rival now for a while. It wasn't a problem per se, but it took me a while to understand that actually I can draw a lot of energy out of it, and actually it could really push me forward to actually improve my game one step further. And then the same thing happened with Djokovic, the same thing happened with Murray again, and so forth. So I think actually rivalries are super important in sports. I think it makes also the game more popular, because alone you just can't carry a game. I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, but I think you always need somebody who you're going to have a good rivalry with. And for me, thank God I had them.
Federer serves the cross-court backhand return. Federer pulls out the drop shot. Exquisite touch from Federer.
I mean, look, mental edge, I think, is so crucial for an athlete. If you know that things are not going to go well, the mental side is always going to be there. There's a lot of things I did well when I was younger, but the hard working part and really believing that I could do it day in, day out, week in, week out, that I didn't have. So that's something I really had to work really hard at. And over time, I was able to get that. And I see it's the difference maker.
Drop shot Federer. Here comes Del Potro. It goes up, but it's not high enough for Roger Federer. Break point Federer.
Yeah, I mean, usually you're at your absolute best towards the end of the tournament, because now you really, the sensation of the ball, of the court, of the speed, of the crowd, of the surroundings, everything's so crystal clear that that's when you can play your best tennis. And then obviously you have to get in the lead, and you have to feel like now there's nothing that's going to stop me anymore. That feeling kicks in, and you feel like, or for me anyway, it feels like everything's in slow-mo coming towards me, and you feel like for the opponent everything's going super fast. So that's when I feel at times invincible. It's very rare, but it has happened in the past, and it's a beautiful feeling to have. I guess it's the ultimate feeling to have as a tennis player or as an athlete.
The off-forehand into the net, and that is it! A flawless performance from Roger Federer.
Well, greatness to me is probably, you know, when you